Hey everyone, come on in. Welcome to another episode. It's been a while, but we are back for another episode of the Woman Intentionally podcast. I am your host, Whitney Kilgore, and today we are going to be having a discussion that I think really needs to be more awareness needs to be brought to. So I have a special guest who is going to share some knowledge, her journey, her testimony, and just hopefully we can bring more awareness to the topic of infertility. So before I go into that, you guys give me 1 second and we are going to get this thing started. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to make sure that I put it out there that this may be a trigger for some people. So, if you are going through the process of infertility, believing God for a child, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but we know it's on the way, sis, just be aware that this may be a trigger. So, I want people to understand that we're going to be as sensitive as we can when talking about it, but we also want to bring awareness. So, just keep that in mind. And if anytime you got to step away, sis, we totally get it. And we'll see you when you feel like coming back in or at a later time. So, all right, with that being said, I want to bring in my guest, and her name is Chivon LeSassier. Hey, girl.
Hey, y'all, how y'all doing?
Hey, so listen, I'm super excited for people to get a chance to learn a little bit more about your journey, to
Okay.
kind of talk about infertility, because honestly, before having friends who have experienced it or going through it, I didn't really realize how many women are impacted by it. So, I think I put in my description of this podcast that about 1 in 5 women
Yeah.
struggle with infertility. So that's like out of 5 of my friends, one of us are going to be struggling with infertility according to that statistic. So I feel like that kind of hits close to home, and I don't necessarily know if women understand. A lot of women recognize that a lot of people aren't able to just lay down and get pregnant and
Yes.
and have a baby. So I kind of want to open that up a little bit, and I just want to kind of hear your journey. So we'll start out with just kind of overall, what is infertility, and what are some of the way that women experience infertility?
Okay. So infertility is basically a couple who have tried for more than a year, usually a year or more, trying to conceive through unprotected sex, and there's nothing happened. You're
Mm.
still not pregnant. And so basically, I mean, there can be many factors of it. It can be male factor. They're not producing enough semen. They're not producing enough semen. They're not. They don't have any at all. To supply, or it can be female factor. It can be like blocked tubes. It can be a diagnosis of something called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It can be smoking. It can be weight. It can be so many things that is causing you to have this infertility. Like, I mean, that you're not being able to get pregnant.
Okay, and I wanted to tap into some of the ways that women like struggle or like in silence. Kind of like I know that some women are able to get pregnant and
Mm-hmm.
not carry the baby
Mm-hmm.
full. Is it full term?
Full term, yeah.
What are some other ways that like women go through infertility or it shows up in lives of women?
Okay, so basically, like, I mean, same thing. I mean, because a lot of people believe that if you got pregnant once, right, you got pregnant by yourself once, they believe that you should be able to get pregnant by yourself. But later on, you can develop infertility. Unfortunately, there's something that's called unexplained infertility, which that was something that kept telling me was that you had like it's unexplained.
Yeah.
And so then it got to the point where I was getting pregnant, but I couldn't stay pregnant.
Mm.
So, and it was, we me and my doctors, we went back to the drawing board to really try to see what it was, what type of doses that we're using as far as meds, because there's different things that you can do. When we think of infertility, it's not just IVF. There's something that's called IUIs, which is intrauterine insemination, and it's a lesser process. So rather than you creating this embryo with the egg and the semen outside of the body, what they do is you have to take meds, and you come back in, and you basically insert with a tube, you insert the semen back into your body, hoping to get pregnant. So there's things like that. There's also little they call time intercourse. They try it that way. So there's just so many different factors when it comes to like infertility and ways of trying to get trying to get pregnant.
Yeah. And I don't think that we even recognize that. Like I think we talked before, like, sometimes we just think, oh, I'm just gonna get pregnant, I'm gonna have this baby, and there's nothing to it.
Yeah.
But that is a struggle for some women. And so kind of getting into that, before we go into your story, I would like to know, um, when you're going through infertility, like we said, like some women get pregnant but they aren't able to carry the baby full
Yeah.
term, like, so in that process women are having miscarriages. How does that kind of play a part into mental, because this is mental health awareness month as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
How does that play on your mental when going through this process?
Honestly, it puts you, like, for me, it definitely puts you in this a depression.
Mhm.
You're walking around, like, for me, I walked around, I was angry with the world. You find yourself being jealous and
Mhm.
feeling like an outcast. I was something that I used to call myself a wannabe. That's what I call, because I want to be a mother, right? I
Yeah.
want to go to birthday parties. I want to have a baby shower. I was a wannabe. You know, so
Mhm.
so with that, you have to go through emotions. Like, you have to go through the emotion. There's no real answer for it. There's no quick way to get through it. Is you really have to go through the emotions and allow yourself to be angry, allow yourself to be jealous, allow yourself to feel the way you are, because you're going through trauma. This is
Yeah.
hard, especially when you have friends that everyone's announcing. Social media was the devil, because everyone is announcing, like, hey, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant. And sometimes you're like, well, me too. I can't wait to, tell the world too. And then you're like, just kidding. I can't tell the world because
Mm.
I'm no longer pregnant.
That in itself is just heartbreaking. Like if you're going through that process,
Yeah.
I'm sure it sounds like that would be kind of hard. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I don't think we really understand. Just trying to understand and trying to see that is what's happening for some people is a struggle. And then we have the aspect of, like, we have our faith and we are
Yeah.
Christians.
Hmm.
And I was listening to this podcast where this lady was saying, she was a therapist, and she was saying that why is it that Christians, like, we don't ever feel like we're supposed to go through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that we go through we don't give people space to go through hard times, or to like, and still be Christian and still know that God may come, it's going to come through for us and things like that. Like, we're not supposed to feel in our valley of the shadow of death, like you were saying, like, feel that anger, feel that rage, feel those things. Like, people just want you to just, oh, God will provide, God will do
Yeah.
this, and things like that. So how did that have did you ever feel that, like, people, like, the pressure to, like, not necessarily express those feelings that you had just because of your faith, or what people were expecting of you going through this process?
Yes, yes, especially in this, and when you're going through infertility, it's a lonely road. You really
Mm,
don't have much people that you can speak with about it, unless you're actually going
mm,
through it. So yeah, I found myself in those valleys, and I'm just like, why am I here? Why? What did I do that was so wrong that I'm here? So I did find myself questioning God a lot. I know they say that we're not supposed to, but yeah, I have questions. I have questions, because what did I do? Like, why am I going through this? Why am I being tortured? And you find yourself with a lot of jealousy and envy, and you're like, unfortunately, it's sad to think like this. You're like, but how come she has 3 kids? What did she do to get those 3 kids?
yeah.
Announced that she's pregnant, and another 6 months later, she's announcing that she's pregnant again. You're like, whoa, or you get to those bad stories where you have moms who are, like, abusing their kids or abandoning your kids, and you're like, God, like, that could have been my baby. Like, I
Yeah.
that baby, like, you could have given it to me, and I would have taken care of it. So yeah, you do find yourself questioning that. And at first I felt a little guilty, but then I'm like, I'm angry, I'm
Mhm.
angry, and I have no answers right now, and I have nobody to give me answers. So yes, I am questioning this.
Yeah, and that's one of them things where I'm assuming, like, he just I feel like that's where God's grace comes in, like understanding that we're human and that
Mhm.
you know we have these feelings and emotions, and He already know, regardless if you say I'm angry, Lord, I'm mad. He already knows anyway. Like, so it's kind of one of those things where are we like trying to hide it from God, but society will make us feel like sometimes like we're not supposed to have bad moments or bad, you know, rough periods in life where it's a struggle, where we're
Yeah.
questioning God and what He's doing and His reasoning and His logic and all those things. Society makes us kind of feel like, oh no, that's not Christ like, you know, to do those things.
Yeah.
But it's our human, and I think that's why he has given us grace, because He knew we'd have those moments, you know, in those moments to come
Yeah.
out of it. So Chivon, let's talk a little bit about your journey now. So we understand a little bit more about infertility. We understand like how some women experience it, what it can do to you know, your mental while going through the process. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You know what I mean?
Of
Like
course. Of
I think you
course.
have an amazing story.
Of course, of course. So 12 years ago, my husband and I, we decided that we wanted to have a baby, so we thought we were just gonna lay in these sheets, and voila, a baby was coming. But we had like literally no idea this journey that we had ahead of us. So we tried on our own for a while with no success. We decided that's like, you know what, let's go to the doctor. I didn't want to, but let's go. So we went there. And at first they're just saying the same thing, like, oh, it'll happen, it'll happen. You're like, when? So after a while of trying, they finally found that I had something called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which plays a major factor in trying to get pregnant because it messes up your ovulation. You can't
Mm,
get pregnant without ovulating. And so then after that, we was like, okay, now we have to go through the next step, which is the infertility treatment. I mean, infertility clinic. And that hurt. Like, that really put me into a depression because I'm like, why am I broken? Like, why do I have to go through this?
mm,
Like, really? But I put on my big girl shoes and we went. And then at that point, we started getting pregnant. And I'm like, okay, good. Yes, yes. So we started getting pregnant, but then I just kept miscarrying. So I'm like, why are you bringing me here to do this to me?
yeah.
But you know what, we still kept trying, and then it got to a point, I think after the last miscarriage, I was just done. I said, you know what, I'm trusting man. I say I have faith, but I can't really have faith if I'm not really giving this all to God. So
Yeah.
what I mean by that is when I'm going through those IVF cycles, they tell you on purpose, like when you're in your 2-week wait, don't test, don't do those things. And me, what do? Day number one, I'm at the store, I'm at Walmart, coming through with all of these pregnancy tests because I'm testing. And
Yeah.
you know what, God, I can't fully say that I trust you and trust what's coming if I don't give this to you. So I'm going to give this to you. And whatever happens, I know that you got me. So
Yeah.
we had our next transfer. We decided that we were going to transfer two to give us a better chance. And we did. And when I tell you, I didn't even have the urge to go to the store and buy a pregnancy test. I really wanted to give this to God. And we did. So after the longest, like 2 weeks ever, we went to the infertility clinic. I had to go because Eric, they don't allow the men to go, whatever. So I had to go, and they came back. She called. We waited all day, so she called and she said, Chivon, your ACG levels are high. And I'm like, okay, but I wasn't new to this. I knew that I had to go back 2 days later so that they can check to make sure that it was doubling,
Yeah.
which they did. And she came and she said, Chivon, I think we got your take home baby. Girl,
Mm,
I bawled. Like, I was just crying. I like ugly crying. I'm just praying. I'm thanking God. And I didn't have any doubt. And then, like, literally, they say, and I guess God needed to test me one more time. He's like, I'm
mm,
sure that you got this. So I was sitting in my car and I'm talking to my husband on the phone, and like literally I feel like this big gush of blood. I was like, uh-oh. I run to the bathroom, blood is just leaking. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I said I was giving this to God. So I didn't panic. I called my nurse to let her know. I came back and I went to the doctor. I got to see my baby's heartbeat. It was still beating. And they said you had something called a subchronic hemorrhage, SCH. So after the longest 10 years ever, we finally welcomed our baby boy.
Mm.
So at that point, we were content on being parents, but we're like, hey, we want to give our son a sibling. We don't want to be in this world alone. So we literally had no idea what that looked like for us. But again, we trust God because we know when we trust Him, He show up and He show out. So yes, we had to go through IVF again, and I miscarried. I miscarried the first one, but the second time, He blessed us with twin baby girls. So after 11 years, our
Yeah.
is now complete.
Yeah, I mean, I love your story, and I love the fact that you were like, look, Lord, I know either way you got me,
Yeah,
like that take. I'm sure that takes like a lot to
it
say,
does.
and so that was one of my questions, right? Like
Mhm.
when you gave that thing away, when you gave that thing to God, like you was like, look, I don't have no urge to go get this test, like you was doing in the beginning, like what did that consist of? What did that feel like? How were you talking to yourself, like?
Mhm.
In the midst of like giving this to God, because I think even for things outside of infertility, like just to give something over to God and to trust Him is hard. So like, where was your mind? Like, what were you talking? How were you talking to yourself in the midst of trying to
Yeah.
give it over to Him?
I basically said, you know what, Lord, you took me through the valley. I'm in the valley right now, and literally there's nowhere to go but up. So
Mm,
I have no idea where this is going. No idea where this is going. And I have no idea why you're doing this to me. Why are you putting this to me? And then I just started thinking of things, right? Like when I first went to go do my IUI, a week before our IUI, my husband's insurance decided that they weren't covering infertility anymore. And infertility is expensive.
yeah.
We paid out of pocket, but I'm like, we're not gonna get far on this. So I had just started a job, and on that job, I did it out for the insurance because I had my husband's insurance, and I wanted to leave this job so bad, but I couldn't find another job. So something said, Chivon, look at this job's insurance plan, girl. I looked in their plan. They covered IVF 100%.
Oh
Like, I
wow.
did the prerequisites. I already did this. So my point is, I was like, you know what, God, you're like setting this up for me perfectly, perfectly. I'm just not listening.
Mm,
I'm not listening to you. So, and I'm not being obedient. And I agree with that. So, you know what, Lord? I'm gonna give this to you. And the cool thing about that, when I gave it to him, when I decided to give him, God gave me a little breadcrumb. My mom, God talks to my mom like they like BFF. He used her a lot. So she just came to me and she said, Chivon, God spoke to me, and she was like, I had a fish dream. And old wives' tales.
yeah.
That's what they did. So it was a just quick story. She said that she was gonna go take her medicine, and the pill bottle had water in it. And when she went to go pour the water into the toilet to salvage the pills, a stream of goldfish just like fell out. So I was like, all right, God, I hear you. Like I hear you. So I think in the whole process, I just wasn't listening.
Mm.
And yes, I had to go through this, but I needed to go through this so that I could find out what my true purpose is.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You said so much, man. I just wasn't listening. I wasn't being obedient. I had to like really give it to him. I think so many of us can take from that because we want to control it. We want to do
Yeah,
what we can do. Like, no, it's got to be something else. But I know that to be true in so many things. Like God will when it's for you, it's for you. Like He'll start setting things in place, and
yeah,
stuff will just start to work out. And then it's like when we're trying to do it and control it, it's like, no,
yeah.
no, like this is you need me. He's trying to remind us that like we need him.
Because in this whole process, like not in well, in this whole anything in my life, right? I
Yeah,
felt able to achieve. I wanted that promotion, I got it. I want that new car, I got it. I want that house, I got it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah,
I was in control of those things. This was the one thing that I was not in control of. And
you better
it
preach.
drove me insane. So that's why I'm like, you know what? But I was like, you know what, God, I get it. But it also was teaching me patience, and I can't control everything because now being a mom of three, I'm learning that because I
Mhm.
have all three of my kids are under the age of 3 years old. So I need patience.
Yeah,
And how your day is starting isn't how your day might end up. You might plan your whole day out, but that's not how it is. So it was a lesson that I had to learn. And once I was like, all right, I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to listen, he was like, all right, I got you.
mm.
Mhm.
We be stubborn sometimes, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's back to our personalities. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I got
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
I got everything else. Like, let me just go and
Yeah.
do this right quick.
Yes.
Yeah. So look, how important was, like you mentioned your mom, how important was having support and friends to support you during this experience? How did that kind of impact you?
See, for a while, I hid it from everyone. I didn't tell anyone because again, I was embarrassed. I felt broken, and my mom, not knowing, she was just like, when I'm gonna get a grandkid, when I'm gonna get a grandkid, how
Oh,
that goes, and you're just in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying, like I'm trying, and just through other people, they would say, oh, Siobhan's never having a kid. She doesn't want to mess up her body. I'm like, what kind of conceitedness is that? Like that's not it. And no one ever stopped to think like, hey, maybe something's wrong. Maybe something's wrong and she doesn't want to talk to anyone about it. And then
mm,
so when I started going through this, I did try to talk to, my friends and stuff about it. But they didn't get it. People say things like, oh, it's gonna happen. Oh, just trust God, it's gonna happen. And it was something that you mentioned, you said earlier in the and when we first started this podcast, and you were like, you were talking about triggers, and you had said, like your blessing, your miracle is on the way, and it's like things like that. We can't really give, we can't give hope like that because it's
mm,
not in everyone's destiny to have a child.
yeah.
So with my friends, I actually lost some friends, throughout this process was because I needed time to heal. And the ones that were my friends, they understood. I'm not answering texts. That's okay. I'm not calling you right back. I want to be left alone, actually, because
Mm,
you can tell me that you get it, but unless you walk the shoes, you actually don't get it.
yeah. Yeah, man, that's so deep. And I wonder about that. Like, and two, like in your mind, you know how we talk about, like, you were believing God for something, right? So it's
Mhm.
kind of like that fine line, right? You're believing God for something, God to do something for you, but then at the same time, like you said it, you were like, but Lord, I know you got me either way. Like,
Yeah,
I know that you have me either way.
yeah,
And man, and it's like the point that you made about people not knowing, or like, oh, I know I've said it, like, did it so many times before, like being aware of
yeah,
infertility. Like, oh, girl, when you having kids? Why y'all ain't got no
yeah,
kids yet? Like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, y'all gonna be old. Just saying
yeah,
stuff that you don't even realize.
yeah.
Maybe can that stuff be triggering? Like,
Yes. That all of that is triggered because you have that conversation, and of course you're not going to break down an emotion in front of people, but when you go back home that hurts. you're
mm,
already you're already in that space where you're feeling like defeated. You feel
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, the whole everyone's having babies and I don't have any kids, and you already feeling that. So when people say that to you, you're like, great, great.
mm,
And then like I remember like one time with my mom, and she didn't know at the time, but she like introduced me to one of her friends one time, and she was just like, hey, this is my daughter. Oh, not the one with the kids. And I was like, damn, mom, like,
yeah,
but she didn't know.
right.
So I think that's the biggest thing is people aren't aware, and everyone thinks that you can just lay down and tomorrow you're pregnant. And I didn't know it was such a big world until I became part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same for me. Like, I didn't know until I started, having friends or meeting people. Like, even when I met you, I didn't know your journey. We connected off the strength of, I had my baby in there and your babies were at home, and
Yeah.
then to learn your journey later on, it's just like, wow, like, it's amazing. And so, like, I want to ask you about that. Like, I'm probably going back to this again, but I feel like it's a really key part, like you mentioned, giving false hope. Like, how would you encourage someone to how do you get that balance of, like, look, I'm believing you for it, but, like, maybe it's not in your will for me to be a mom. Like,
Mhm.
how does that work out in someone's mind who is kind of like on the fence of, like, wanting to have faith and believe God, but at the same time not wanting to, have a false hope? Is there a balance, or, like, how do you go through
So,
that?
I mean, honestly, that's like something that you have to work out in your head.
Mm,
At some point, you're going to have to ask yourself, are you willing to give up, or you're going to keep on fighting? So for me, I was going to keep fighting. Giving up wasn't an option. As long as I had the means, I wasn't going to give up.
yeah.
So I think it goes individually, you know.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what? I've done all I can do, and I'm tired. So, excuse me, girl.
Yeah, yeah. Take your time.
My allergies are kicking my butt.
They out here trying to take us all out, girl.
I'm
My
like, come
husband
on.
all super puffy and everything.
Yeah. So it just really depends. Like it depends on the person, and it's like, are you even ready to have that conversation with yourself? Because that's a tough conversation to
Mm,
have. Like, all I want to do in this world is be a mom. Now I have to be open to the fact that I may not be a mom.
mm. Yeah, that's something I hope women that are listening to that will start to, like, just like you said, you said have that conversation, when you're ready to have that conversation with
Mhm.
yourself, kind of keep, work it out within yourself, because nobody's alike. And that's one of the things I wanted to say in the beginning as well. Like, everybody's journey is different and
Mhm.
all of that, so um I just think it's a beautiful thing to just be open and to understand that it doesn't look the same for anybody hardly.
I mean, 'cause it was in my journey to have kids, but
Yeah.
everyone, So even when I'm talking to other people, I don't give them false hope. I mean,
Mm.
yes, you can look at my story and you can use my story to keep you motivated, but you do have to understand at the end that that may not be your end game.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's important too. It's important to have that little thing there just to kind of know, right?
Hmm.
Know what I mean? Yep. So okay, so we talked about your faith and how that played a part, and the fact that you were giving that away to God. So, what are some things that women or couples can do to help in the process? To help process what they're experiencing and stuff like that.
So you can seek, counselors. You can seek IVF coaching. That's what I do. So you can see infertility coach. You can seek, I mean, you can join groups. Like for me, because I felt like I was in a world by myself, I actually found groups on Facebook too. That some with my clinic and some with other clinics, and you become a part of a community, and everybody in these community they get it. So I mean, I'm not saying go in there and just be like a shadow. Like, you have to go in there and be involved, because these
Yeah.
people really support you, and they get it. And sometimes you have people in there that will go through it with you. And sometimes your friends are like, it'll happen when it happened. No, you don't want to hear that. You want somebody to go with you and be like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This really sucks. You want
Yeah.
to go there with you, and in these groups, people will, because everybody's in there trying to do the same thing. Everyone's letting where they're at in their cycles, whether they're doing IVF, IUIs, or whatever they're doing. So you're in this group, and honestly, I think those groups help me. I look forward to going into those groups, um, because I knew I was in a world where everyone got me, and I can just be me.
Let it all out.
Yeah, I could be me.
Yeah. Okay, so help us out. Help out friends in
Okay.
this moment. Like, y- you are giving us insight into, like, the mind of someone who was walking this out. You know what I'm saying? So how can us as friends support? Because the first thing we want to go to is be like, you know what we want to say, and it's out of a good place, but like, how can we? And it made me be a little bit challenging, but like, how can we show up authentically and just kind of like really support in a way that will feel good for the person our friend that's going through it.
Like, honestly, I think the biggest support that you can do is, like, don't give false hope. One thing that we spoke about, earlier. So if they do decide to come to you and be open about wherever they're at in their journey, don't say, "Hey, sis, this is gonna happen for you, all in God's timing." Give them their space.
Mm,
Disappear for you a while. Just know it has nothing to do with you. They're in a place of trauma. They're trying to find where they can find balance and peace on their own. And then also, I think one of the biggest things that you can do is sometimes go through it with them. Like, hey, I understand. I don't understand what you're going through, but you know what? This sucks for you. I don't know how I can make it better, but this sucks. And be
oh,
mindful. Like, be mindful. So, like, say, if you're having, a birthday party for your child, and yes, you want your friend to come, you want your friend to be part of it, but temperature check them. Say, hey. I'm having this party and I don't want, and I know certain things are triggers. I don't want to not invite you, because I don't want you to feel like I'm outcasting you, but I want to know where you at and really be okay with whatever decision that they come with, because they may say, hey, you know what? I'm down to help you set up the party, but I can't stay.
Yeah.
Or that baby shower, like, hey, again, or say you just found out that you were pregnant. You have somebody that's trying to get pregnant. That's the most uncomfortablest things. But you also, me being on that side of the infertility part, you don't want to be the last one to find out. So it's more so of like, hey, I have something that I want to talk to you about. I think it's going to be a trigger to your infertility journey. Do you want me to share, or do you want to hear it at another date? Be open be open, and then I honestly, if you're just if you're saying you want to support, like, these are the ways that you can support them, and just sometimes just leave them alone.
Yeah, girl, I love how freaking real you are. Like, I love, like, it just makes so much sense, like, I think we're programmed to want to say those things and that's from a good place, but like, man, you really just open my eyes so much to, like, okay, right, this does suck, because you feel like it sucks, but you don't want to say that it sucks. So like, you just kind of like putting it out there that maybe it's okay for you to just be like, girl, look, this sucks for you. How can I help? Or what do you need from me? Or
exactly. And then when you're asking them, how can they help? Because sometimes, honestly, they may just say, hey, can I just not use you as your punching bag, but can I just open up to you? Can I just talk? And I'm not looking for you to respond. I just want to talk. I just want to get this here, and I just want you to sit there and just listen to me. Like, that's it. I don't need you to respond. You can't help me. I know you can't help me, but I just want somebody to unload on. And if you can, then let me do it.
Oh, girl. I just think this is so good to hear. Like, we do not have these conversations. We don't have these conversations. So in turn, we don't know, we don't know. So I really appreciate you opening up and enlightening us. And I think we have to be conscious of, like, where our friends are. And like, the friend that's going to be like Chivon, like, girl, look, yeah. So I think that's so good. We talked about how you gave it to God, and what the internal conversation was like. Let's see. So I think the last question I want to get into is, what are some of the ways you coped with, like, worry and doubt? Like, what are some of the ways that you like, you mentioned, like, look, there was no giving up for me. There was no, like, I'm gonna be in this until we can't do it no more. So, like, did that doubt ever creep up? And like, what are some of the ways that you coped with that stuff?
Honestly, I allow myself to go through the emotion. There would be times where I would just sit and I would just sit and I would just cry. I would just cry because I needed to. And if you know me, I'm not a crier at all. But this was something, again, that I couldn't control. And I didn't understand why I was going through this. So. Honestly, my husband was a big help, because even when I was starting to give up hope, he didn't. He didn't, and he was just there. He was there with me. And at one point, I was like, you know what? I don't know where to go from here. Like, I don't know where to go from here. And he just came and gave me one of these good hearts of hearts, like, Chivon, everything that we want, we get at some point. And like always, we need to learn patience. God shows us that we need patience all the time. And you and I always forget that, So I allowed myself to just really, go through the emotions. I said, you know what, you're not going to give up. Allow yourself to be mad, angry, but don't stay there. Say that. I would say that. I would go, I would cry. I was like, you know what? You got 10 minutes to get yourself together and get back into this game, because this is something that you want. And I have to be honest with myself. This is something that you want. And yes, you can't control it, but you fight for everything else. Why wouldn't you keep fighting for this?
Yeah. That's good, man. That is so good. I think sometimes we just in general, we don't really sit through the feelings. Like, we don't really want to sit in the uncomfortability of anger or frustration or or doubt or whatever it is in that moment, and then get back out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like you said, don't stay there.
Don't stay there. It's easy to stay there. And then just with anything that you're going through, it's easy to stay there and just wallow in your and wallow in your pity and things. But it's like, no, no, get back up. You know? And this is something that you want. You had two choices. You either give up or you keep going. And it's easier said than done. I'm not even gonna lie. It is,
Yeah.
because that's one thing that you want, and unfortunately, being in a world where there's children and baby showers and all this stuff, all of these things are triggers.
Yeah.
All of these is triggers. I remember just sitting on a park bench with my niece and nephew while they're playing, and I like almost had a panic attack because I felt like, again, my word that I use is a wannabe. I'm on this bench and I'm just like, there were people with newborns, and I'm just like, I wish that was me. I wish I had a newborn. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm always the auntie and never the mother.
So after coming through all of this, like going through this process, now having your own family, being able to look back at Chivon in the middle of all of that stuff,
Hmm.
what kind of encouragement, like those things, like, and that's one of the things I'm big about too, or like I'm paying more attention to, is my self-talk, the way that I talk to myself, the things that I say, what I call myself, what people have attached to me in my past and called me, and then I go and say myself. So in the midst of that, like, you may have somebody feeling like that very same thing, calling themselves those very same things. What would you tell them? Like, yeah, we don't want to give false hope, but like, what are some of the things you would tell them now, kind of looking back and have it, and you're seeing that?
Okay, perfect. So I would say like, yes, we have to go through the valleys. We need to go through these valleys, but you're going through that valley with a purpose. So on this journey, just know that God is with you. He does hear you and He does see you. Now, in time, He will show you what your purpose is. So it may not be a child, but He may be using you for something else. You
Mm,
just don't know what that is. So, I'm never going to give anyone false hope and say, hey, there's the pot of gold at the end of your rainbow. But you know what? There's something big there, and
right.
if you can really like train your mind, like rethink this and say, I'm giving this to God. He has it. He has the final say regardless. So yes, I can worry. Yes, I can have self-doubt. But what is all of that going to do for me? What is
Yeah.
for me? So if you retrain your mind and just say, start having those conversations with God, and sometimes He will break you off those little breadcrumbs to say, hey, go in this direction, go in this direction, go in that direction. We just have to be obedient and listen.
That's so true. It's so true. I think that's some good stuff. Just talking to yourself, talking to God,
Hmm.
retraining the way we think about ourselves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it's so important. Well, I think you've given us a lot of insight on how we can support our loved ones that are going through this, and then also kind of a better understanding of what it's like from somebody walking through it, and encouragement to those that are on that journey right now. Do you have anything that you would like to share? And can you tell us about a little bit about infertility coaching, like how you
Sure.
assist women?
Sure. So when I do the infertility coaching, it's kind of like we come up with a game plan. So again, because I can't at the end, I can't promise you, a baby, but we kind of talk about things. We kind of see where you're at in the process. What are some of the things that you have done? We talk about your feelings. We talking about, my favorite one is, really teaching people how to be unapologetically selfish.
Mm,
It's saying no to the things that bring on your triggers. Hey, you want to go? Can you come to my daughter's my daughter's party? No, I don't have any kids. Why am I coming? Can you come to this baby shower? No, I can't come here. So really setting boundaries. We talk about like setting boundaries for yourself and really holding yourself accountable to these boundaries. And yeah, you're gonna have to keep repeating them because people don't get it the first time. So you have to let them know, like, hey, I said no. Please don't invite me to these things. And honestly, your real friends to stay and the other ones to leave. And you want that to do, you want that anyway.
regardless. Yeah, you really do.
Talk about, next steps. I give them, insight or what they can do next in their process, because infertility doesn't necessarily mean IVF. It doesn't mean IUI. There's other things that can be done. So we just talk, we just have conversations, we set up game plans for what we're going to talk about for the next place, where we're at. And I kind of started off like, hey, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
What do you want from me today? So, because before I dive in all of this of what we're going to do, what do you need today? Because if today just needs me to listen to you, then guess what I'm going to do today? We could push all of this aside and I can just listen to you.
Yeah. So a big sounds like a lot of support, just
Yeah.
supporting and being there for them through the journey, having the experience, being someone that knows what they're going through,
Yeah.
and just really helping them kind of strategize how to
Yeah.
navigate a complicated situation.
Mhm. Yeah, and really telling them, you got to push it back, especially because I hear a lot like people feel like their protocols isn't correct via doctor. They feel like they shouldn't say anything. Like, this is your body. If we're gonna be violated in so many ways, you push back to these doctors. They work for you. I mean, I was blessed to have a great team, but everybody doesn't have that. And they're like, we're just using the same protocol and it's not working. Well, what are you doing about it?
Right, right. How to advocating for
Yeah,
yourself, because sometimes,
yes.
yeah, we don't realize like just in general how many rights we have and a voice to speak up, because
Yeah,
sometimes we get quieted down a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I literally had an amazing team. Like, and like my doctor, and he used to call me, like when he used to call me with bad news, I heard the trouble in his voice. Like, he really was like sad. So I had like a great team. So, and I talk to people, how far are you willing to travel? What are you looking to accomplish? Are you doing this through insurance? Are you paying out of pocket? Like, all of that. So we just talk, we just have a conversation.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, ladies, listen, if you are going through the process or on a journey to through infertility, then you need to reach out to Chivon and set up you a session for her infertility coaching so she can support you and help you figure out how to navigate this as best as you can, and
Mhm.
having somebody who understands what you've gone through, because maybe your friends don't get it. Maybe they just don't get it, and you need somebody who's walked it, who can encourage you on your walk. Hit up Chivon, follow her.
Yes,
She's
yes,
always encouraging people on Instagram. Do you have
yes.
TikTok yet, or are you just doing Instagram?
I'm just doing Instagram right now. I do have TikTok, but I don't post on there a lot. But yeah,
Okay.
it's Chivon Monique is me. Definitely come follow. I do some inspiration. I talk about my journey on there. So just come. And again, if you're not ready to do 101, definitely find a group. Don't go through this journey alone. Because you're already lonely, so you don't have to go through it alone. So definitely reach out to a group if you're not ready to do 101, and don't be embarrassed. Like, that's one thing. I mean, we already are, and I get that, because going through IVF, especially as a woman, it makes you feel less than a woman because we
Mm.
do this. But like, definitely, I get it. So come talk to me.
Yeah, come talk to her, y'all. She's so,
Mhm.
and this is like her, even like she don't
This
turn
is
it
it.
off. Like,
This,
this is who Chivon is. She's gonna keep it real with you. It's been like that from day one, and I just love that about her. So I'm so glad. I really appreciate you for trusting this space with your story and opening up to share with us. And I pray that you will get clients that will benefit from the gift that God is giving you through all of this.
yeah.
And just thank you so much for being here. Do you have
Sure.
any final words? Or you said, tell them your Instagram one more time.
Yeah, so it's Chivon Monique is me, ChivonMonique. It's me at oh yeah, that's it.
So that's the Instagram, you guys. We'll put it in the comments below. If you have
Yes.
any questions, please ask them down below. She'll be tagged on this so she can come back and answer. And then just hit her up, y'all. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming on here, and thank you guys for tuning in. And as you go throughout your day, as you live your lives, ladies, don't just exist, but woman intentionally. All
Yeah,
right.
good
Goodbye.
job. Thanks.